"It's a beautiful piece, isn't it, darling?" I said, holding the framed painting at arm's length. The colors were vibrant, an abstract swirl of blues and golds that seemed to capture the essence of a turbulent sea. It was a birthday gift from my daughter, Amelia. She's always been the artistic one, full of a passion I've never quite understood. This one, however, felt different. It was raw, honest, and filled with a kind of light that I couldn't ignore, even as I planned what I was about to do. Amelia's wedding was just a month away. She's marrying Lucas, a man I simply cannot stand. He's an artist, just like her, and as far as I can see, completely devoid of ambition. He lives in a tiny apartment, teaches art to children, and seems content with a life of mediocrity. My daughter, a graduate of an Ivy League school, a talented architect with a promising career, was throwing it all away for him. I saw it as a choice of passion over security, and for me, that was a fatal mistake. My plan was simple and, in my mind, perfectly logical. The painting was not a gift to be cherished, but a tool to be used. I had already made arrangements with Mark, Lucas's ex-boyfriend, who was hosting a small gallery event. He was a wealthy art collector, and I knew how much he still despised Lucas. By giving him Amelia's painting as a wedding gift, I would not only cause a scene but also subtly undermine her happiness. I knew it was cruel, but I was convinced it was for her own good. She needed to see the kind of people she was associating with, the petty jealousies and the tangled messes of their world. She needed to see that her beautiful, simple life with Lucas was not as perfect as she believed. As I wrapped the painting in brown paper, I felt a twisted sense of triumph. It was a masterpiece. But in my hands, it would become a weapon. The gallery was a symphony of pretension and money. Glass of sparkling wine in hand, I moved through the crowd, a forced smile plastered on my face. Mark spotted me from across the room, his grin a shark's promise. "Evelyn, you've arrived," he said, taking my arm. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't make it." He led me to a quiet corner where the wedding gifts were displayed, a collection of tasteless, expensive trinkets from his wealthy friends. The painting, a wrapped mystery, was placed prominently on a pedestal. "It's a gift for my daughter's wedding," I whispered, loud enough for a few people to hear. I thought it was only fitting, considering the circumstances. Mark's eyes glinted with understanding. He unwrapped the painting, revealing the vibrant blues and golds. A gasp went through the small crowd that had gathered. The piece was undeniably stunning. Mark, ever the showman, held it up. "This, ladies and gentlemen, is from Evelyn. A truly generous gift." The crowd applauded, oblivious to the cruel irony. I felt a pang of something, a fleeting moment of guilt, but quickly pushed it away. This was a necessary evil. Later, I saw Amelia and Lucas enter the gallery. She looked radiant, her hand intertwined with his. They moved through the crowd, a beacon of naive happiness. I saw her eyes scan the gift table, and then they landed on the painting. Her smile faltered. Lucas saw it too. His face, usually so open and gentle, hardened. He knew. I watched as Amelia approached the painting, her fingers tracing the frame. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "Mom?" she whispered, her voice a fragile thing. But I didn't answer. I just looked at her, and then at Lucas, and I knew my plan was working. It was the first crack in their perfect facade, and I was the one who had made it. The wedding was a subdued affair, nothing like the extravagant ceremony I had envisioned for my daughter. The gallery incident had cast a long shadow. Amelia and Lucas were polite to me, but their smiles were tight, and their eyes held a distance I couldn't bridge. I saw Lucas's family, simple and kind people from the Midwest, trying to cheer them up, but the air was heavy with unspoken words. During the reception, Amelia pulled me aside. We stood under a canopy of twinkling lights, the music a gentle murmur in the background. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Why did you do it?" The question hung in the air, a silent accusation. I had rehearsed my answer 100 times. "I was trying to show you, Amelia. I was trying to protect you from him." I gestured vaguely in Lucas's direction. "He's not good enough for you. He can't give you the life you deserve." Her expression was a mixture of hurt and disbelief. "You think you know what's best for me?" she asked, her voice rising. "You think you know what happiness looks like for me? That painting? It was from the heart. I poured my soul into it. It was a representation of our relationship, the beautiful and the messy. And you just gave it away like it was a piece of trash. You gave it to someone you knew would hurt us." The words were like daggers. I saw the disappointment in her eyes, a disappointment so profound it made me feel physically ill. She didn't yell, she didn't scream, but her quiet sadness was more devastating than any fight could have been. "I love him, Mom," she said, her voice now a whisper. "And you just proved that you don't care about my happiness. You only care about what you think is best for me." And then she walked away, leaving me standing alone in the fading light, the music now a jarring sound in the quiet space between us. For the first time, I felt a cold, sharp blade of doubt. Had I gone too far? Weeks turned into months, and my world grew smaller. Amelia stopped returning my calls. When I tried to visit, she wasn't home. I wrote letters, filled with half-hearted apologies and justifications, but they went unanswered. The silence from her was louder than any argument could have been. I tried to convince myself that she would eventually come around, that she would see my perspective, but a part of me knew she wouldn't. The painting had not only been a gift, it had been a piece of her, and I had carelessly thrown it away. I started to see the world through a new lens. The expensive dinners I used to enjoy with friends seemed hollow. The conversations, once filled with gossip and social climbing, now felt meaningless. I was alone in my perfectly curated life, and the emptiness was a physical ache. I would pass by art galleries and think of Amelia and Lucas, and the life they were building together, a life I had so desperately tried to destroy. I found myself obsessing over the painting. Where was it now? Was it still hanging in Mark's gallery? Or had it been sold? I knew the answers didn't matter, but I couldn't stop the thoughts. I saw a picture of Amelia and Lucas on social media, a candid shot of them laughing in their small, cluttered apartment. They looked so genuinely happy, a kind of happiness that had nothing to do with money or status. I looked at the picture for a long time, my heart a heavy stone in my chest. I had wanted so much for her, but in my pursuit of what I thought was best, I had lost sight of what mattered. It wasn't about the painting. Not really. It was about my own arrogance, my own inability to accept that my daughter had a different vision for her life. The painting was just the final, irreversible mistake. And now, I was left to live with the consequences. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for the next chapters of this story. A year passed. My loneliness had become a constant companion, a ghost that haunted every room of my spacious house. I had tried to reconnect with other family members, but the story of the painting had spread. My sister, my own flesh and blood, had told me, "Evelyn, you crossed a line. You didn't just hurt Amelia. You betrayed her trust in the cruelest way possible." Her words echoed in my mind. The friends I once had, who once saw me as a strong, determined woman, now saw me as something else, a villain. I had built a life on appearances, and now those appearances were crumbling. The holiday season was the hardest. The phone remained silent. I sat in my beautifully decorated living room, staring at the empty spaces where family photos used to hang. I had taken them down, unable to bear the sight of the happy memories that now felt so distant. I thought about the holidays of years past, the laughter, the warmth, the feeling of a full house. Now, the silence was deafening. I found myself walking through Amelia's old room, running my hand over the posters on her wall, the art supplies on her desk. I saw a half-finished canvas leaning against the wall, a simple still life of a bowl of fruit. It was so simple, so innocent, and so full of promise. I saw a part of her that I had deliberately ignored. I began to realize the true nature of my cruelty. It wasn't just about the painting or about Lucas. It was about my own fear. I was afraid of her choosing a path that wasn't mine, afraid of losing control, afraid of her finding a happiness that didn't involve me. My selfishness, disguised as concern, had destroyed the most important relationship in my life. I had been so convinced I was doing the right thing, that I was protecting her, but I was only protecting my own ego, and now I was paying the price. One rainy Tuesday, I found myself driving aimlessly. I ended up in the neighborhood where Lucas and Amelia lived, a quaint part of the city filled with small cafes and independent shops. I parked my car a block away from their building and sat there, watching. I saw them walk out, hand in hand, a dog on a leash between them. They were laughing about something, their heads close together. They looked so perfectly, blissfully normal. I saw the way Lucas looked at her, with a kind of devotion that I had never truly understood. I saw her look at him, and the pure, unadulterated love in her eyes was a revelation. It wasn't the kind of love I had with my ex-husband, a transactional arrangement built on shared ambitions. This was something deeper, something real. I saw a small sign in a window. Art class for kids, taught by Lucas. A small group of children walked out, giggling and holding up their colorful drawings. I saw Lucas kneel down to talk to one of them, his face gentle and kind. I realized that my perception of him as a man without ambition was completely wrong. His ambition wasn't to accumulate wealth or status. It was to inspire, to create, to share the beauty he saw in the world. He was a good man, and my daughter had chosen him. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring my vision. I felt a profound, gut-wrenching shame. I had tried to destroy this. I had tried to tear down this beautiful, simple life with my own selfishness. I watched them walk away, their silhouettes disappearing into the rain-soaked street. I wanted to scream, to apologize, to tell them I was wrong. But I knew I couldn't. I had no right to disturb their peace. My time for excuses was over. The only thing I could do now was to live with the truth. That I had lost her, not to Lucas, but to my own unforgivable pride. 2 years turned to 3. The silence from Amelia continued, a persistent ache in my soul. I had stopped trying to reach her. I figured the best thing I could do for her now was to leave her be. I focused on my own life, trying to find meaning in the emptiness. I started volunteering at a local animal shelter, something I never would have done before. I found a surprising solace in the simple, unconditional love of the dogs. It was a small step, but it was something. I was beginning to learn what it meant to care for something without expecting anything in return. One day, I was flipping through an art magazine when a photo caught my eye. It was a feature on a new art gallery opening, and there, prominently displayed, was a familiar painting. It was Amelia's. The caption read, "Mark Harrison's collection of rising art stars," featuring a striking piece by an unknown artist, The Unmooring, a powerful testament to a new beginning. The title was not Amelia's, I knew that much. It was Mark's. He had claimed it as a piece of his collection, an anonymous work of genius. He had used it to elevate his own status, just as I had used it to hurt my daughter. My heart pounded in my chest. It was a new wave of shame. I had not only betrayed my daughter's trust, but I had also stolen her art and given it to someone who would use it for his own gain. It was a double betrayal, and the weight of it was suffocating. I felt a renewed urgency, a need to make things right, not for myself, but for her. I knew I couldn't undo what I had done, but I had to try. I had to at least try to give her back her painting, her masterpiece. I had to face the man I had used, the man who had happily participated in my cruelty. I had to find a way to make him give it back, to admit the truth. This was no longer about my pride. It was about her art, her heart, her identity. It was about righting a wrong. The thought of facing Mark again filled me with a cold dread. He was a cruel man, and I had no leverage over him. But I was determined. I went to the gallery, my heart pounding in my chest. He was surprised to see me. "Evelyn, what a pleasant surprise," he said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "The painting," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "The one my daughter made. I want it back." He laughed, a dry, cynical sound. "It's not for sale, Evelyn. It's a key piece in my collection. Besides, you gave it to me. It's mine now." "You know it's not yours," I said, my voice gaining strength. "You know it belongs to her. You know its story. And you know you're using it to hurt her, to hurt them." He looked at me for a long moment, his face a mask of indifference. "Why do you care so much now, Evelyn? You were the one who gave it to me. You were the one who wanted to hurt them. Don't play the hero now." He was right. He saw through my act. He knew I was just as guilty as he was. But something in me had changed. I wasn't doing this for my own pride anymore. I was doing it for her. I reached for my purse and pulled out my checkbook. "How much?" I asked, my hand trembling as I wrote. "I'll pay you whatever you want. I want to buy it back." Mark's eyes widened. The shock was clear on his face. He never expected me to do this. He had thought I was a cold, calculating woman, just like him. He had underestimated the depth of a mother's regret. I wrote him a check for an exorbitant amount, a number that was meant to sting him with its extravagance. "Take it," I said, my voice firm, "and give me the painting. Give me back what was hers." He took the check, a look of stunned disbelief on his face. He led me to a back room, a storage space filled with art. He pointed to a painting leaning against the wall. "Here," he said, his voice flat. He had removed it from the frame, a petty act of spite. I didn't care. I carefully rolled up the canvas, the familiar texture a comfort under my fingers. The colors seemed less vibrant now, a little faded, but the soul of the painting was still there. I left without another word, holding the canvas like a precious jewel. I drove to Amelia's house, my heart a mix of hope and fear. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, or if she would even let me in. The porch light was on, a warm, inviting glow. I walked up to the door and knocked, the sound echoing in the quiet night. I heard footsteps, and the door opened. It was Lucas. He looked surprised to see me, his face a mixture of caution and curiosity. "Evelyn," he said. "Is Amelia home?" I asked, my voice a whisper. He nodded and called her name. She came to the door, her face a blank canvas. She saw me, and then she saw the canvas in my hands. Her eyes widened. "The painting," she whispered. "It's yours," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It was always yours." I held it out to her, and she took it, her fingers tracing the familiar lines. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a complicated mix of emotions: surprise, confusion, and a hint of something I hadn't seen in a long time. A glimmer of hope. I had no grand speech, no perfect words. All I had was this piece of canvas, a symbol of my regret, my failure, and my love. And in that moment, as I stood on her doorstep. I knew that this was the most important gift I had ever given her. Amelia looked at the rolled-up canvas, then at me. Her expression was unreadable. "Why?" she asked, her voice soft. "Why now?" I took a deep breath. The words came out raw and unfiltered. "I was wrong, Amelia. About everything. About Lucas, about your life, about what happiness means. I was so afraid of you making a mistake that I made the biggest one myself. I was so blind, so selfish. I stole a piece of your heart and gave it away because I was too afraid to see that your heart was where it was supposed to be, with him." A single tear rolled down her cheek. Lucas put a hand on her shoulder, a silent gesture of support. Amelia looked at him, then back at me. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know if I can ever forget what you did." "I don't expect you to," I said, my own tears blurring my vision. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just wanted you to have your art back. It's a part of you. And I can't change the past, but I can try to give you this back." She nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said, her voice a whisper. It was not a gesture of forgiveness, but it was a step. She still had a long way to go, and I knew it would be a slow, painful process. But for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. I turned to leave and she said, "Mom, wait." I turned back. She was holding the painting, looking at it with a mixture of sadness and love. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "I'm going to start over," I said. "I'm going to try to be a better person. I'm going to learn to accept that I don't always know what's best for everyone." It was the truth, the raw, painful truth. She didn't say anything, but she gave me a small, sad smile. And in that moment, as I walked away, I knew that my punishment wasn't the loneliness I had felt for the past few years, but the long, difficult road of rebuilding a relationship I had almost completely destroyed. My mistakes were a permanent part of my story, but so was the possibility of a different ending. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one.